Wow.
Wait, are you recording the whole thing?
So, hi everybody. Yes, I'm just going to record the whole conversation tonight for Mandana. Is that all right with everybody? That you were shocked by that? I thought that's what she was asking.
I was shocked by it because I was picturing like, is she gonna sit down and watch 2 hours of this, or does she really want to get to her poem, you know? But maybe.
I hope you can speed through, but maybe we'll say let's all focus on saying things interesting enough to make Mandana want to listen to the whole thing.
True.
So we have three tasks for tonight. The first is to listen to Nitya's presentation, and it's bird by bird, right?
Yes.
And is the author Anne Lamont?
Yeah.
Lamont?
TT. That's
TT.
2T.
Because I don't know her at all, and I don't know this book, but this book has a really good reputation, and it's one that I very much like to read. Bird by bird. Is there a subtitle?
Subtitle.
Yeah, like a colon with bird by bird, then I don't know, reflections on poetics or whatever.
Some instructions on writing and life.
There you go. That's a pretty good subtitle, right? And then after we hear Nitya's presentation and we talk a little bit about it, we have Mandana's poem, followed by Nitya's poem, followed by Valentina's, and then Jen's. Okay? And then that is the second thing. The third is My Last Duchess, dramatic monologue, and a little bit more in depth about what we can do with dramatic monologue. And just to put what did my grandmother used to say? To put a bug in your ear, which is, I think, a really gross metaphor.
Isn't it like an earworm or something? Isn't it earworm?
Oh, earwig.
Yeah,
Earwig. Do you know what earwig?
maybe. The therapist said something like that to me the other day. It wasn't a bug. Gross.
Yeah. Whatever the disgusting metaphor is, the idea is not disgusting at all, which is to plant a seed in your imaginations for when we get to the third part of the night. What is binary thinking? This is just something for you to think about. What is binary thinking, and how does dramatic monologues help us avoid it? And of course, why do we want to avoid it in the first place? So that's a big, huge, humongous question in English literary studies that leads to deconstruction and Jacques Derrida. So we're not going to get that deep, but we can have a little bit of a conversation about binary thinking. Okay?
What's Jacques Derrida?
We'll talk about who Jacques Derrida is when we get to that part, okay?
Oh, it's not an actual person. I thought you were saying like da-da-da, but in your way. Okay.
No, it's an actual person. Well, he's dead, but he was an actual person who had a massive influence over English language studies from the 80s on. So, and he continues to in his death. So let me do one housekeeping thing just very quickly. Oh yeah, happy Halloween. Where's everybody's costumes? Everybody looks the same. Does anybody like Halloween? I guess not, judging by all of our. Oh, you do?
I love Halloween. I'm just gonna be dressing up after class.
Oh, okay.
Are you going out into the city? What are you gonna do?
I'm probably just gonna dress up and hang out with my friends. I think they might know of some parties. I kind of like my Halloween was mostly this weekend. But I was Finn from Adventure Time.
Oh, cute.
I dressed my dogs up, you guys.
Oh my God.
That is adorable.
They tolerated it?
Yeah, looks like for the
Yeah.
quick photo.
That's so cute. So I bet that took a little while to get dogs to sit still for any amount of time is sort of, I don't know.
Okay, you know what?
You're
The groomer did it for me.
the what?
Who?
The groomer
Oh,
did it for me.
okay.
So, have it in me to keep both of them calm, but they
So-
did me a good favor.
That's so cool. I will share quickly in the chat a picture of me during Halloween. Let's see, a file. I never use chat. Format emoji file. I guess a photo is a file.
Yeah.
Right. And this is from when I was, I think, 7, maybe 6. And where is it? I just saw it. There it is. And here you go. I don't know if you can see it. That's my brother, the skeleton, and I am the blonde witch. I was already doing things that my parents were questioning. Early on,
Oh,
So cute.
I had no idea.
you look really happy in that photo, huh? Let me just say.
I feel
So
I can't really
happy.
tell. Can't see.
well.
Actually, it looks rather serious. You look rather like
Yeah, I was
Like, are
trying to be
you like
sarcastic.
You really?
Oh, I see. I don't
You
know.
look really upset, actually.
I don't know
tried-
what I felt because I actually don't remember this.
Yeah.
I just stumbled onto this picture. So,
Cute.
so yeah, anybody else have anything to post for us for Halloween? Okay.
Did you, Julia, what did you dress up as on the weekend? Oh, you told me Finn.
Yeah, Finn the Human, and then I was also Kurt Cobain.
Okay,
Ooh,
I can see that. Can see that.
that's I see that too, but that's kind of scary, no?
Eh,
I love Kurt
I
Cobain. He's all over my walls.
love
Yeah.
him too, but I like his wife more, have to say.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I love Hole, but I feel like I don't know. That's a whole other topic of
A
conversation.
whole other thing. But one time I was walking down the street and there was this long line on 16th Street, and I said, "What are you guys waiting for? Courtney Love is playing here tonight for free."
Oh my God, I would have flipped out.
Yeah, I did flip out, and I of course went. It was really, really fun. So,
May
all
I
right.
say, Richard, you seem very jolly today. Did you get good news today or something?
No, not any jollier than usual, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. I had a COVID shot.
Okay. So you're hopeful to
So
be inoculated.
yeah, I expected some kind of a sobering effect, but that did not happen. No, I don't know what it is. I just happy to be alive. It's a beautiful day
Yeah.
today, but it's cold, really cold. So,
It is.
so here we go. Nitya, starting off with you.
Okay.
And
Thank
sorry, before we,
Sorry.
Ollie and Janae, can you turn on your videos, please?
Did you get my email?
No, I did not. When did you send it?
I sent it at like 4, I think.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have checked it. What's up? You just don't have video?
No, I'm very sick.
Oh,
It's kind of a distraction. I think I'm just coughing and sneezing a lot, and just yeah.
okay. Well, thank you for being here, and you can just do whatever you wish. Okay?
Yeah.
I hope you feel better soon. All right, Nitya.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna share screen, right? Yes. This one. Okay, we can see this, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Ooh, I'm a little nervous. I didn't expect to be so nervous. Okay. So Bird by Bird. So the title was like the reason the title is Bird by Bird is because Anne Lamott, her brother, he had like a project in school where he had to write a report on all the hummingbirds that like ever exists, and he like a night before submission, he goes to his father and he like tells him that he has not even started the project, and like he goes to him and cries about it, and the father tells him, let's take it bird by bird, one bird at a time. That's why the name of this book is Bird by Bird. Which I really like. This is a reminder I need, like, in my life. Because I don't like the saying, how do you eat an elephant? It's because, like, one bite at a time, right? Like, that is so, like, inhumane. Like, I don't like that.
Macabre?
I like this one better. So I'm gonna change it to this one now.
Okay.
Okay, so I decided to present this book from back to front because I just thought it makes sense that way. And also this book ends in such a hopeful note. So I just thought, like, if I start with that, you guys also will be more interested. Okay, so a student of Anne Lamott, is it Lamott or Lamott? I don't know, Lamott. Sorry?
Lamont.
Lamott. Okay, all right. The student like asks her that why does our writing even matter? And she answers by saying that because of the heart, and because reading and writing decreases a sense of isolation, and it makes us feel less alone in the world, and that writers feed the soul. And they like make us laugh about our life. And the other thing she said was that our buoyancy is restored with writing. And I just love that phrase. And after reading it in this book, I've been using it since then. I even like wrote an Instagram post saying, my buoyancy is restored by this coffee I had in the morning or some. But it's like so profound. But it's a short phrase, but it's so profound. I love it. And then she says that by writing or reading, we are given a shot at dancing at the absurdity of life instead of being squashed by it. And that it's like singing on a boat when there's a terrible storm outside. Because you can't change the storm, but I mean, I know it gets like philosophical, but I like really love it. You can't change the storm, but you can lift the spirits of the people who are with you on that boat. And that really resonated with me personally because I do stand-up comedy, and
What?
yeah, yeah. And like ironically, I was in the middle of a depressive episode and I was in bed for like 2 weeks straight. But then I got a spot, right? Like I got, and getting a spot is like not very easy. So I was like, okay, I gotta go. I don't know how, but I gotta go. And like to the thought of like saying jokes while you're feeling absolutely terrible is ironical. But I was like, you know what, this is going to, I don't know if it's gonna lift other people's spirit, but it might lift mine during like the storm, right? Like, so this I really resonated with. And I showed up in my PJs that I've been wearing since like a week. And I just like showed up on stage, said a few jokes, and people laughed. And I felt like, you know, like, oh, I have a place in this world, you know, like this is what I do, and I like it because I make people laugh. And so it gave me like a sense of like purpose. So I really resonated with like what she said in the end. That's also why I really like this book. Okay, so let's start from the beginning now. There's a few chapters just dedicated to procrastination. And just stories of how she procrastinated and how she was just sitting at a cafe and thinking about this and that, and it just goes on for chapters, and then you realize you have to give it that much time. Like, you have to respect the process of, yeah, you are going to procrastinate and not be frustrated by it, but then like allocate time for it or days for it to just let it happen and just like ride through it. And while you do, you observe, you listen to other people's conversations and let that sink in, and like let it like ignite some ideas you might have, or not, or you just like do other things just to procrastinate. But like what she said was like to respect it and not be frustrated by it, which I thought was a good advice. Okay, there is a there is a chapter saying shitty first drafts, and that is the nature of first drafts, is to be shitty, and they are going to be shitty, and to accept that, and nobody else needs to read it. It's just for your eyes. You can burn it after, but it's important to write that shitty first draft. And just to get started, like sometimes we don't know where to start, so she tells her students to think about their childhoods, like if they're having trouble writing, to think about their childhoods, and if something comes from there, or like think about school lunches, which I thought was really interesting. And that school lunches is like opening your insides in front of your friends, and like letting like them like smell the smells of your body. And it's so personal, the school lunches, because she says that it tells you if your family is okay or not. Like, if you have a good school lunch with like, I mean, I was in an Indian school, so there was like roti and like sabji. But if you just like got apples, we were like, are you okay? You know, like, is everything okay? And it is true. It tells you like, if you're like, who made this lunch? If a dad made this lunch, it's going to be messy. Like there is like a paragraph for it where she's like, dads just don't know how to make school lunches, or at least didn't know then, and that they were oblivious and almost like foreigners, and they didn't know what they were doing. And you can just tell. And she has like one page just dedicated to that, which I thought was hilarious. Yeah, and that first drafts are a lot like Polaroids, and that you have to let the Polaroid develop, and that you are meant to not see the development of it. Like, it'll just happen, and you just have to let it, and that you're not supposed to know until it's finished developing. So all your job is to just like write your drafts and not focus on, is it good or bad, or how is this going, or like the editing part comes way later and not in the start. Okay. Character. So you should ask your character a bunch of questions like what are their secrets, and like in your writing it should be clear, and like how do they stand when they're bored, like you should be able to visualize them, what's in their pockets, like at least if if you can't visualize it, at least for your own sake as a writer you should know your character very well, and that who do they vote for, and like what would they stop doing if they had 6 months to live, and what are their faults, because faults are likabilities, and that's how you like your characters, by their faults. And that are they interesting or are they boring, like they don't always have to be interesting because you're writing about them. And she gave an example that if you have a best friend, you could just go get coffee and not talk the entire way, and you could say that's boring, but that's also like how people are sometimes, and that they're not always interesting or saying interesting things, but the situation can be interesting. um and that imperfection is key, like, and to not focus on making the character perfect, because then they won't be as likable. um and to just let the chips fall, and sometimes just gotta let it happen and some other force just take over, and just like if you feel the character should be named Jessica, name it Jessica. Like, don't think. And in the first drafts, at least, uh, just like intuition, like trust your intuition. And then she talks about intuition after this, which I think is very cool. But she also has these like topics like plot and character and dialogue, which is like important to writing. So I'm just gonna get through this. Plot. So plot grows out of character, and character doesn't grow out of a plot, is what she said. And to make your characters exist and make them true, and to not worry about the plot, to worry about the character, because if the characters are interesting, then there will be a plot. And then ABCDE was, it's a good like I would say like a trick to make sure your script is like on, like it checks everything. So A is for action, which draws us in, makes us want to know more. B is for background, where you let people know what was going on even before the story has started. D for development, where you develop these people so that they can learn about the drama and action, and you develop the character. And C for climax, where things change at least for the main character. It could change for the supporting ones as well, but at least the main character. And ending, E for ending, which is what are they left with. So I think that's a good thing to have like in your notes somewhere if you're writing a lot, to just like keep checking. And she writes about dialogue, that dialogue should never be forced. And it's like the worst thing ever when you're reading something and it looks forced and you don't want to read it anymore after that. So it's like you put two people together in a place in like a lift, for example, and where they never want to be together, Like they have changed countries just so that they don't bump into each other, and you put both of them together in an elevator and you like stop that elevator and like get them stuck in it. There will be dialogue that will be produced in that environment, and that's how dialogues should be. Like, it should be inevitable that even the characters can't help but say the things they're saying and that they have no control over. And there's like tension where, are they scared of an explosion or a fight in the elevator? Sorry. Okay. And then there's a chapter called Find Your Broccoli. And it's about intuition. And she explains it like how, like, when you're kids and you don't want to eat the broccoli, and your parents, like, they make up stories about how the broccoli wants to be eaten. And so, like, let your characters or your intuition make up stories, and let the stories tell you like their stories instead of you writing it, because that is again forced. So like, trust your intuition and instincts, and let your character tell you what they want to do in your story, instead of you making them do something that you want to do because your personal agenda, but maybe the character is not into it. And I really like experienced this when I so I wrote a script, like in a writing class, and I was so scared of dialogue that I didn't give the characters any dialogue at all. And it was a short film, like a script for a short film, and I only wrote descriptions because there was only like action happening, and I took the safe way out. And like, the story that I wanted to tell was a bit more serious. But the way I wrote it the first time, it was a comedy. And it looked like it didn't want to go in the serious zone. As much as I tried like pushing my agenda, it just didn't fit. And the character seemed happier with just like being it a comedy. And so I let that be. Like, after reading this, actually, I was like, okay, I'll write another script about the serious stuff some other time. But this one, I'm gonna let it be. So, and I think the story is better that way. So you do gotta trust your instincts and trust your broccoli. And if it's not a broccoli, you can name it any other, like an alter ego you have that is more in tuned with your intuition. And you can just, like, when you're writing, you can just let that come out. Yeah, and she says to quiet your rational mind. So again, to let that character come out and quiet your rational mind. Like how, like, some psychics, like, they draw, right? They draw so that their rational mind is occupied, and then their subconscious mind can just like do the talking, something like that. Yeah, and you can write whatever you want and edit it and rewrite it later. No one has to see it. She keeps saying that. And then she says, this may help you feel less alone. And I was like, oh. She also, like, when I was reading this, there was a point, this is a funny book, and there was a point where, about like school lunches or something, where she's like, well, you may be thinking about like stuffing your face with cake after, and or like you may be worrying about being overweight. Not that I'm calling you fat. And then and I was and like she breaks the fourth wall a lot. And I just like it just like wakes you up. I think it's funny sometimes. Okay, when do you know you are done? This is one of the questions this one of the students asks her, and she says, you know, when it's like putting an octopus to sleep, and all the like 8 hands, you have to tuck it in, like, and then like it still tries to come out and you still like tuck it in, and it's like weeding and pruning and rewriting. And when there's no more steam in the pressure cooker, you know you're done. Like all these examples, I just think they're amazing and very visual. Okay, this is the end. And there's a story about a brother and a sister, and it's about giving, where the sister, she needs like her brother to donate blood because that's the only match in the family. And the brother says, and they're like 2 kids, and the brother says, okay, I'm gonna need a day to think about this. So they say okay, and then he comes the next day and he says, okay, I'll do it. And then they take his like blood, and after the procedure, the brother, he like asks the nurse, now how long until I die? So so she says you have to be that innocent and naive when you're giving, and that makes you like being innocent and no being naive and sophisticated. Oh, sophisticated innocence is a gift, it is yours to give away. I think that's beautiful. And the belief that something is right, no, something is beautiful because it is right. And by doing this, like by giving your work, you help your readers be braver and be better than they are and be open to the world again. And I can think of one book that has made me braver and open to the world again. It's called The Curious Incident of the Dog at the Night Time. And this was, I think, the 3rd book I ever read. And it was just so beautiful. And I still think about it and cry sometimes. But it made me braver because I was like, if this person can do it, then I can do it too. I don't know if anyone has read that book. I don't want to go on because this is about Bird by Bird. Yay, we're done.
Okay. All right, any quick comments or questions before we move on?
How do I stop share?
Yeah, that was very, very thorough. In a good
Okay.
way. I really liked it, but I don't think I have to read it now, right?
Yeah,
It's so
that's true.
thorough. Like it's hilarious.
That is true.
Hilarious, but you did a good job. You did a good job. Let's
Okay, thanks.
With
Yeah, you
especially-
really made, I'm sorry.
Go
You
ahead,
really made
Sarah.
your
Go on.
slides really interesting. I was like clicking pictures of the slides because like I really found the broccoli thing and like the header so interesting. So I was like, oh, there's so many ideas in here, and like even the lunchbox, I'm like writing it all down because yeah, it was
Oh,
really
that's
nice.
Thanks.
Good.
I also noticed she talked about procrastination, right? And we keep hearing that. We keep hearing this procrastination thing. And I wonder if that's because like are we all socialized to think it's like the evil word and so everybody has to push against that? I mean,
Mm.
Anybody? Add anything? Procrastination? Does that stir up anything in anybody? Anybody think
Think
about it?
about that. I read somewhere that there was this quote where it was like creative people need time to just sit and do nothing, because that's how you end up with like everything. And I don't know why, it's just in my head all the time after I've read that. And like even today in like her presentation, she had these points, and like you actually need to like sit down. Like procrastinating can be good sometimes.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Nothing? I want to push back a little bit against the idea of writing decreases our sense of isolation. I'm not so sure for me that it's writing that decreases isolation, but maybe the product of writing decreases isolation. But for me, at least, the time of actual work is entirely isolation. I'm surrounded by isolation. I need isolation in order to work. And that can go on and it has gone on for literally over a decade. And then it's over and I'm very happy, which is kind of where I'm at right now over the last couple of weeks. So I wondered about that. And
could she be saying something? Could she be saying, because I think I experienced what you're experiencing. Could she be saying like, is it something about like you're writing to a reader? Is it the hopefulness that what you're writing, do you think that's what she's talking about? Will be read by another, which somehow.
I think so. What do you think, Nitya?
I do agree with you that it is isolating writing. But there's also like, once you finish writing, even before sharing it, I think there is a sense of accomplishment. That okay, this is something you wrote and
Yes,
you like.
how does that decrease isolation in the world? Like your sense of isolation. You said that writing decreases our sense of isolation and our buoyancy is restored. I just wonder how a sense of accomplishment, that seems to me to be purely subjective, right? And I wonder how I can change anybody with anything I ever write if it never is published, for instance.
Mm.
I mean, it might.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Maybe
does
it's
it
the
actually do that?
isolation. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Maybe it's the isolation within you. Like you're so isolated with your own thoughts, and sometimes just like letting it out, like in the means of writing, or like I don't know, any means, like I do scribbling, or like just roughly writing it down, and maybe like isolate, like letting go of your thoughts
Mhm.
can make you feel less lonely within yourself, because sometimes you're just like so lonely in your own head. It's not like you need people and like surrounding, but within yourself. Like
Hmm.
that's what I understood.
Oh, so it's isolation from the perspective of the writer is what you're talking about.
Yeah, maybe like there's
Decrease.
like some isolation inside you that you feel, and like writing something would like let go of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was taking it more kind of globally, I guess.
I think you can take it in every way, right?
Uh-huh.
Within yourself, after you publish it to the reader, maybe like 99% of 99 people think like the thing you've done is shit. But if like 1% thinks that, oh, it made them feel less alone,
Uh-huh.
then it counts, right?
Right. Okay, so that's something for us to all think about as we head into talking about the poems for tonight. So let's go in that direction, and let's start with Mandana's poem. And could I have two readers volunteer since Mandana's not here? So could somebody read the poem the first time and then somebody else volunteer to read it a second time, please?
I can. Either way, I'm just pulling it up.
Great. And then the second
Okay.
time? Who's volunteering for the second time? So the order is Mandana's poem, followed by Nitya's poem, followed by Valentina's, then Jen, who's also not here.
Also, I can read Mandana's poem the second
Thank
time.
you. Go ahead, Tamar.
Okay, here we go. I haven't read this yet, so here we go. It's a okay, dream poem. It happens quickly, the chalky business of waking inside, this time stirred by a ringing telephone. This time you on the other side of the line, except you sound muddled and far, asking through the crackling distance if I can hear you. I don't know how to use my voice. The knot forming in my throat feels gamey. I want to shout yes, but the part of my body that lays on the other side of this reality is doubtful. So I don't say anything, instead choosing to bask in all that I miss about the tiniest rooms of your voice, as you find ways to tell me that you'll need to leave your body and me behind. Hunger rides the edge of the moon as those words crest, rise into certainty, stone, substance, meaning. But I gulp my tears, those bitter rinds of sweet ache down, and nod into the darkness of this place, and before I could grab out across the inky vastness, you're gone. And I'm pulled upside into the chair beside your bed and your dying body, my heart racing with aliveness. Wow.
It happens quickly, the chalky business of waking inside, this time stirred by a ringing telephone, this time you on the other side of the line, except you sound muddled and far, asking through the crackling distance if I can hear you. I don't know how to use my voice. The knot forming in my throat feels gamey. I want to shout, yes, but the part of my body that lays on the other side of this reality is doubtful. So I don't say anything, instead choosing to bask in all that I miss about the tiniest rooms of your voice, as you find ways to tell me that you'll need to leave your body and me behind. Hunger rides the edge of the moon as those words crest, rise into certainty, stone, substance, meaning, but I gulp my tears, those bitter rinds of sweet ache down, and nod into the darkness of this place, and before I could grab out across the inky vastness, you're gone, and I'm pulled upside into the chair beside your bed and your dying body, my heart racing with aliveness.
Oh, she's not here. So this is a very interesting poem to me that I think I need to read a few times. And my first thought is I'm noticing a couple of interesting word choices that I really enjoyed that I'm not sure. Okay, so when she says the knot forming in my throat feels gamey, and I'm like immediately drawn to that. But then I was just looking up the definition of gamey, and I can't really find where it works, but I feel like it works. I'm excited about that for some reason. And also the chalky business of waking inside. Just strange, but somehow beautiful. I don't understand it, but I like it.
Anybody feel the same thing about those words or different words? Let's try to connect our conversations up, you all, and not just have separate opinions, but let's try to connect up with each other and what we're saying so that we sort of register and give credence to what someone just said. Anybody have any comment, any reaction to what Tamar just said?
Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds nice, but I can't, like, nothing, no picture is coming to mind immediately when I read those two sentences.
You mean lines?
Those two.
Hunger rides to the edge of the moon. It's another strange one, but that's beautiful. Hunger rides to the edge of the moon. Right? Like where it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense. You know, you feel that somewhere it makes sense, and that's enough almost. To me.
Those three places I marked when I read too. When I was-
Really?
yeah, and you and I often have overlap tomorrow, and we have
do.
first day, which is really interesting. So to me, those places are unusual, and I don't come to poetry to read the habitual at all. And if I can get a poem the first time, I don't find any reason to read it in the first place.
Mm.
You know, I mean, if I'm not confused in some way,
So it's a puzzle. It's something mysterious about it that you're drawn to. I guess I agree.
mysterious. I would say
Agreed.
mysterious more than a puzzle because it's not trying
You
to,
don't need, yeah.
like, I think every one of us can get a different understanding of the tiniest rooms of your voice, or hunger rides the edge of the moon, or the chalky business, or the word gamey. And all of those can be valid. And so when I think of a puzzle, I think of all the pieces having to fit together, and we would all create the same
Mm.
visual, right?
Well, I wasn't thinking that kind of puzzle. I wasn't thinking
Okay.
that kind of puzzle.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah.
It's like what you were talking about last class, like how poetry is exploring and not explaining. So when you write it, that's what you're doing. And when you read it, that's also what you're doing.
That's a good point.
And for me, I heard my thesis advisor once described it as meaning is fugitive. And I love that phrase. It's always just out of my reach. So to me, the chalky business of waking inside is really interesting. Like, what do I get? Chalky mouth taste of waking up in the morning sometimes, or yeah, that's the overriding.
Waking inside.
Huh?
Waking Well, I just realized the inside part.
Yeah,
Waking
that's strange too.
Strange.
Inside what?
Yeah.
And yet I love that it's not immediately plain to me. It's not immediately clear to me. Yeah.
But can we talk about why, which you've probably thought much in your life about, why are we drawn in by the mysterious that we can almost grasp, but we can't? Why is that appealing? Just objectively.
Okay.
Or maybe it's not appealing objectively. Like maybe it appeals to me and you, but maybe other people, I don't know.
It's a great question. Why? So let's hear some answers. Why do we want, why would a person be attracted to a poem that is not immediately clear? What reasons could we give for that kind of aesthetic?
So that you can spend the rest of your day just thinking about it at the back of your head.
Sure, but why would you want to spend the rest of your day doing that? What does it give you to go through that process or exercise?
I think because poetry is so abstract, it differentiates like it from like the normal reading, and like a person just tends to like enjoy the beauty in the complex words, and like finding the meaning within that. And it can be interpreted in like so many different ways to so many different people. So I think that is also a beauty like of that.
Yes, and
And
so
I
talking about a reading response theory, it's called, when readers respond in their own way. And it's also called hermeneutics, when the study of interpretation, like how we go about interpreting language arts, right? Hermeneutics. So yes, definitely true. What
there's
would,
also a,
yeah.
a need to connect, right? Like whatever you're reading, you want to connect it with your own self. And you like find ways to do so, maybe sometimes.
And how does that, Nitya, work in with the idea that what I'm reading is obscure and difficult? How do I what would I gain? I think you're onto something. What do I gain by connecting the obscure to myself? What is obscure in all of our lives? Can we mention any obscurity in our lives right now, or any time in our lives? Or
I
any,
was just thinking when you said that. What did you say? You said obscure and what did you say?
I don't know.
I don't know, but it was good.
I have to
And
look at
what
the recording.
yeah. Okay, so Mondana knows, but what it immediately made me think of is our relationships with other people. Like other people are obscure, and whatever word you said, that's immediately what came to mind. We think we can understand. And we're attracted to trying to understand, but we can't really, can we?
What can't we understand in our lives?
Other people.
Other people.
Yeah.
Okay. What else don't we understand?
Our emotions a lot of the time.
Emotions. Yep.
Also, that line, waking inside. I love it. I like sitting with it for a little and then like understanding that this is a dream poem, and like I interpreted it as like waking up in a dream, like waking up inside of your body after being unconscious. And that's such a good way to put it, like waking inside, like you're in your subconscious and now you're awake inside of your subconscious.
Agreed.
Huh. And so we don't understand dreams, do we? We don't understand our bodies, do we? I mean, who among us really understands their body? Anybody?
Understand, but you can.
How did Kathy's egg and Dean's sperm make me?
Mystery of life.
Mystery of life. Boom. So why would I want my poems to be clearly discernible? Like I'm not saying like I can't have a clear thought in my poems. There's plenty of clear thoughts in this poem.
Why is it attractive? Yeah.
But it's certainly attractive to find words that are unusual, that spur on my imagination, that make me think of the mysteries.
Yeah.
On earth.
Recalling the mystery. It's recalling this like underlying unknownness that we can never know.
And there are a million things like that. If we all just think about it and notice in the world, tonight, tomorrow, look in this dog's eyes. Well, there's a soul. I mean, I see
You
her.
can never know it. You can never know it.
Well, that's up for grabs, right?
What are you saying? If that dog could write you poetry, maybe you could have a better look into your dog's soul, but
I think I think the operative thing is like what is
yeah,
what is
what is
no, like I don't mean intellectually at all.
No.
She and I see each other sometimes and I can tell she's really looking and I'm really looking. And I don't have that with another creature. I mean, the other dog, she's great, fantastic. I don't want anything bad to happen to her. But I don't feel that with her. You know what I mean? Like, where are the mysteries happening in your personal life? This poem brings me into that with these odd moments. And I think the center of the poem is that you'll need to leave your body and me behind. And so I'm wondering if
you can make a bigger distinction
between
To pull that out. You'll need to leave your body and me behind, right? You see what I'm saying? To make that thought more, like the next thing that comes after it should be a little more obvious that that's the center.
I don't know, like that'll have to be decided upon by the poem, but it
Yeah.
does seem to me that this dream poem, it seems like a dream. It doesn't seem like a myth poem to me. It does seem like a dream. I don't know exactly who's talking, and I'd have to spend more time maybe even before I could unearth that. If it can be, I don't know or not. But there is something being said that seems surreal, like beyond the norm of everyday life, the surface of everyday life. And for that reason, I'm really interested. I don't know if the you in the poem has actually died, and if this is an actual reaction to a death, or if it's a fear of a death in a dream, or if it's some other possibility, which maybe we could name other possibilities. But the word aliveness does
Yeah.
end the poem, right? And
Right
that-
after your dying body, my aliveness.
Yeah, and so I'm not clear about that, but hell, I don't really care to be clear about that. I rejoice in the language, and I want to go back to it. So for us all to think about, what do we want in poems? Do we have a need for language in and of itself? In some context, in some way. Any last thoughts about Mandana's poem before we go on?
Yes.
Please.
I love the two lines, but I gulp my tears, those bitter rinds. That's exactly what gulping tears feels like, swallowing bitter rinds. So like uncomfortable. Yeah,
What was that last part?
it's uncomfortable.
Uh-huh. And so the image is working for you.
Yeah.
Yes. And that happens numerous times. The tiniest rooms of your voice.
Tiniest rooms of your voice.
So I think
That
that
one.
we're really good at making concrete from an abstraction.
Inky vastness.
What was the vastness one?
Inky vastness.
Yeah. Very visual, right? And tactile. And
And
you,
the form
Huh?
was gorgeous. I think the form was gorgeous. It read very nicely.
and you did a good reading of it too. You were really following the lines with your breaks in your voice. Yeah.
I almost wish this is I don't know why, because I like Hunger Rides the Edge of the Moon so much that I almost wish the part afterwards where she's listing words. I almost just want Hunger Rides the Edge of the Moon, and I want that to be the end of something so I can sit on it. Kind of. That's the only thing I would say.
I wonder if that's the title and it should just be taken out and used as a title.
Ooh.
Yeah, very odd title.
It's a
Yeah.
very dreamy title then, isn't it? Hunger Rides the Edge of the Moon.
But I love the crest rise into certainty stones, that
Yeah.
that playfulness of those what are those called? What are those?
Is slash?
Yeah, slash. But that feels really playful to me, and I'm always interested in finding plays. So there's so much more. There's so much going on in this poem,
There
right?
is. It's very
And it's
beautiful.
wonderful to see. And I'm noticing that in multiple poems as we go through the class, there's a push forward in a lot of context in your poems. And I'm really celebratory of that in all cases. So
I noticed that from everybody too. Everybody seems to be pushing it much further than the first poems.
yep, which is
Exciting.
fantastic. Let's go on to Nitya's poem, please. To the Moon and Back.
So I read the first time,
Oh.
right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
This is so cool looking.
Okay. Spaceship soaring through the cosmic sea. Molly is frantic, chasing dreams so free. Zan in my arms, no seatbelts in this flight. Up and up we go through the endless night. To the moon and back, I'll hold them tight. my grip tight in this endless flight. I'll keep them safe, my babies in my care. Little cute fluff bunnies, a precious pair. We drift through space in the calm we sway, floating weightless as we find our way. Till the moon approaches a distant silver dune, our cosmic journey ends as we land under the silver moon. We step into the lunar land, excitement in the air, running, jumping, and playing without a single care. Moon's craters like dimples, a rugged terrain, endless adventures in this lunar domain. A world of wonder, our joy knows no rain. The moon's beauty and fun forever to sustain. Zan and Molly in the moon's gentle embrace, chasing moonbeams in this tranquil space. Laughter like stardust, their smiles interlace. In the moon's tender glow, they find their place. Bouncing through craters like playful bunnies, moon cheese beneath their feet, their giggles echo in lunar night's calm, a cosmic playground where they find their charms. Even in this foreign world, we find reasons to swoon, our adventures just beginning under the silvery moon. But time won't wait, and we must soon return. To the spaceship we go, our hearts begin to churn. With memories of lunar fun like a fleeting monsoon, we'll cherish our time together on this watchful moon. Spaceship soaring, taking us back through the cosmic sea with laughter, joy, and a little bit of glee. Zan in my arms, Molly at my side. So light, we journey back home through the starry night.
Second reading. Somebody who hasn't read?
I can read.
Okay.
Spaceship soaring through the cosmic sea. Molly is frantic, chasing dreams so free. Zan in my arms, no seatbelts in this flight. Up and up we go through the endless night. To the moon and back, I'll hold them tight. My grip tight in this endless flight. I'll keep them safe, my babies in my care. Little cute fluff bunnies, a precious pair. We drift through space in the calm we sway, floating weightless as we find our way. Till the moon approaches a distant silver dune, our cosmic journey ends as we land under the silver moon. We step onto the lunar land, excitement in the air, running, jumping, and playing without a single care. Moons crater like dimples, a rugged terrain, endless adventures in this lunar domain. A world of wonder, our joy knows no rain. The moon's beauty and fun forever to sustain. Zan and Molly in moon's gentle embrace, chasing moon's beam in this tranquil space. Laughter like stardust, their smiles interlace. In the moon's tender glow, they find their place. Bouncing through craters like playful bunnies, moon cheese beneath their feet. Their giggles echo in lunar night's calm, a cosmic playground where they find their charm. Even in this foreign world, we find reason to swarm. Our adventures just beginning under the silvery moon. But time won't wait, and we must soon return. To the spaceship we go, our hearts begin to churn with memories of lunar fun, like a fleeting monsoon. We'll cherish our time together on the watchful moon. Spaceship soaring, taking us back through the cosmic sea, with laughter, joy, and a little bit of glee. Zan in my arms, Molly at my side, so light. We journey back home through the starry night.
Hey, let's hear some comments, please. What do you think? What would you tell Nitya that she, that you think is important for her to know about this poem that she wrote?
I really like it. It has such like a nighttime kind of childhood nostalgic feel to it.
So
Can
I
you
agree with that. And you know
that?
what it made me, sorry.
So let Janae develop that a little bit. Where do you see that, or what produces that, or what's a little bit more elaboration you can say that creates that childlike feeling in this poem?
Um, it's the rhyme. I'm not sure which is rhyming, and also because I don't know that. But like it's the spaceship soaring. Little cute fluffy bunnies. It reminds me a lot of like the tempo of like the poem reminds me so much of Goodnight Moon.
Goodnight Moon, what is that?
That's what I was gonna
Um,
say.
the good night moon and good night stars and good night like like
This
Oh,
is
it's
a chill.
all
Yeah, I think this is like a children's book. Like, I think this
yeah.
is like
yeah.
a lullaby that you would read over and over to your child, because I did that with my kid, and sometimes space books and every page. And you love, like, when you're reading to kids, I don't know if anyone else has kids here, but you love these rhyming things because it's very fun to read
Uh-huh.
over and over, right? Otherwise, it's hard to read the same book over and over. And it's like you're singing to your child, and I felt the same way.
It's frolicsome and it's playful.
But it's sweet, and it does feel like Goodnight Moon, like it's a close to the day, right? That's when you're reading to them. Did you think of that when you were writing it, Nitya?
I did make a conscious decision to make it rhyme, to make it feel childlike. But I don't know about Goodnight Moon.
Or what about Where the Wild Things Are? Is that a book? Is that
What are you saying?
that
That-
connects? So decode, describe, connect. So I'm trying to connect to things way back here, somewhere that I
Mhm.
haven't thought about for, I don't know, 45 years or 50 years for that matter. And it's curious because what you're doing does call forth something in me that thinks about those things. And I think this might be a dog poem.
Definitely. It's definitely the dog.
It's
So I could celebrate the dogness of your poem for sure. I wondered, does everybody think that the final stanza is important to have in this poem?
I think that that's what contributed to it feeling like a book, like a book that you would read to your child.
Because it
Because
completes the circle. Oh, sorry.
exactly, it completes the circle. So I don't know as a poem, but yeah, that contributed to the story feeling, I think.
And so are you saying that we might treat this poem differently if we thought about it as for children, a children's work versus, I don't know, just any age, right? That children's work we'd want to have more circularity. We'd want to have this feeling of return for the child, right? Maybe children learn that from poems like this, books.
It's true. Why do we do that? What are we saying to our children when we feel comfortable reading them those things?
What is the necessity of repetition or a circular feeling in any work? Can anyone think of anything, any response to that?
like sense of satisfaction that there's an ending, like a proper ending.
Right.
Sense of satisfaction, uh-huh.
I
I can't-
feel I feel when like there's an ending, you think about the whole like poem as a whole, but when it's like open-ended and you need to figure out, like a brain is just like juggling between like words. But like when it's a complete poem, you see the entire image. Like you have the image in your head and like it's just framed in a certain way. But when it's not, you're just like finding meanings and like trying to connect the dots.
So that's another way to say that it's satisfying as an ending to
Yeah.
return to, right?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of repetition? because this is repetition, right? Cosmic C and Cosmic C, for instance. Why does repetition make us feel satisfied or comfortable often?
Because it's predictable.
Okay. What are some predictable occurrences in all of our lives?
Day and
Like
night.
Day and night.
Sunrise, sunset.
Yeah. Sun and the moon.
What else? This is where repetition comes from in poetry. Sun and moon, day and night, same thing. What else? What else is repeated in our lives? Every single
Coffee.
one of us. What?
Coffee.
I don't drink coffee, so that doesn't work.
Perfect.
Something that all of us share without a doubt.
Sleeping and waking? What are you talking about? What are you getting at, Richard?
Is it breathing?
What's repeated in your lives? What's repeated? Really important things we can't live without.
Eating?
Feels like breathing, like closing like a breeze.
Yes, breathing is a repetition that we all must have. Maybe that's the primary
Heartbeat.
repetition. Heartbeat, right? And if we go back to where we're living in our mother's bodies, we're absorbing her heartbeat, her breathing. What else are we absorbing from our mothers when we're living in her body?
Bacteria. I know that's not poetic. I didn't, but I had to say it.
That's gross.
It's true. And all the yeah.
Walking. We may have learned rhythm from the repetition of our mother's walking. It may be as deep as that, right? And how different mothers walk, and how different mothers walk in different parts of the world, right? And how we absorb rhythms differently, and maybe that leads to differences in, let's say, music. Indian music is not like American music, right? Indian music has quarter tones, right? And American music, we hear Americans, it's okay, Softy baby, sweetie pie. We hear quarter tones as dissonance, right? Indians do not hear quarter tones as dissonance.
But does it have to do with the language? The cadence of the language?
It has to do with the rhythm, and how rhythm and music are totally wed. So these questions are not meant to be silly, or anything like that. They're meant to be like, this is fundamental to who we are as human beings. And so I think about that in your poem, and I find it really pleasurable. Moon cheese beneath their feet.
Yes, the feet doesn't rhyme with anything.
Breaks.
Yes, I have that written down too. I was like, oh.
So
when you read it, when you hear it out loud, you're just like, oh, okay. It doesn't,
Bravo. This is the whole point of doing this. Thank you for saying that. That's the.
So now you're gonna have to rhyme with bunnies, which is funny. Bunnies, not money.
Okay,
No.
and as we go on, this is a really joyful, playful poem, and I love that. And now, Nitya, that we know that you're a stand-up comedian, I want you to think about, where is that stand-up comedian in your poems? I've never heard anything even close to that. So why not? I just watched Sarah Silverman the other night. She's hilarious and really devastatingly funny. Like the most horrifying things in the world she takes and makes funny, which is an amazing gift. And maybe all of us are hiding something from our poetry, or keeping something from our poetry, because we think maybe poetry is not supposed to have that. On the other hand, maybe poetry is everything, like literally everything, every voice, every human, everything. There's nothing that is ever left out. And so all of us can think to ourselves, this is a rhetorical question, what am I leaving out? what's really important to me. I mean, one thing we left out that I'm assuming almost everybody in this room except for me menstruates, right? 20, so there's another whole huge cycle. I mean, and talk about fundamentally important. Like, what's more important than that and breathing? Like, those two things, like, that's to me where all of it comes from. Like, all of the mysteries that we talked about in the previous conversation. How did this happen? I mean, how is it possible that this is how we are? You know, I mean, that's a massively huge question. So I just want to encourage you all to include all of ourselves in our poems and not censor our parts.
So this is
I
a little.
definitely left out a lot of stuff because there was like some stuff about like the Dark Knight, and I was like, oh, I'm at it again. Like, I again want to put in some like dark stuff in my poetry. Can I just, because
But
like this was based on my nightmare, but I just wanted to like change it and make it a happy dream
Okay.
for once in my life.
Save that for another
Never
poem.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another poem. So let's move on and talk about Valentina's, and somebody else volunteer to read the second time who hasn't tonight, please.
Okay. Obsidian dreams, black waters inky, here space and time melt, on my body silky, a wound far past felt, and forsaken waters crushed by man's force, a sunless space, muted, lost, complete desolace, I'm staring at the source. Heavy pressure of depth, my lungs become breathless. Accompanied by aggressive silence, I hear my heart burning and its stomach acid. Yet again, the feeling of compliance. Him digesting what belongs to me, a familiar ballad. There in a mirage of ebony, beliefs of hurt becoming destiny.
Second reading, please. Somebody who hasn't, go ahead, jump in. Janae, we're wasting time. Let's go. Second reading, please. Obsidian Dreams.
Okay. Black waters inky, here space and time melt, on my body silky, a wound far past felt, and forsaken waters crushed by man's force, a sunless space muted, lost, completely desolate. Oh, yeah, desolate song. I'm staring at the source, heavy pressure of death, my lungs become breathless, accompanied by aggressive silence. I hear my heart burning and its stomach acid. Yet again, the feeling of compliance. Him digesting what belongs to me, a familiar ballad. There in a mirage of ebony, beliefs of hurt become destiny.
Thank you. Thoughts, your immediate reactions, anybody?
It sounds like they're describing drowning.
Ooh, this is painful, Valentina. I feel it. You know what I thought was really interesting? So when you all of a sudden you said, I hear my heart burning in its stomach acid, and it felt a little like kind of scientific, right? But then I see you tied it in with him digesting what belongs to me. That's interesting to me. Him
Also, this is a very, very rough draft. I was like, I'm gonna come to class with like a very imperfect poem.
But we know from Nitya's presentation that rough drafts are welcome in our class, right? So nothing's done. to me, what comes to mind first is, before I try to figure out anything about this poem,
Yeah.
it's the off rhymes and
Yeah.
the pure rhymes too. Inky and
Inky and
silky,
silky are good.
breathless and silence and compliance, and then to me and ebony and destiny. And there's this sort of knitting together. So regardless of how dark this poem is, and there's lots of dark words, from obsidian to desolate. Is that a word? Desolate?
I know, I never heard it and I just looked it up.
It is.
It's a word, right? Valentina, did you know
Right.
that? Or
Yeah, it derives from desolate, right?
yeah, it says to deprive somewhere of inhabitants, to devastate or lay waste somewhere, to abandon or forsake something, to make someone sad, forlorn, and hopeless. I
Mm,
can't believe I'd never heard this word.
yeah, me neither. That's a really good word. Thank you
Yeah.
for giving us a new word. You know, that's worth a lot to me.
Right.
So regardless of how dark the poem is, there is also pleasure. And that's, to me, part of the miracle of poetry, that all of these sounds that I named, they give me, I can lie back in them no matter what's happening in the poem itself, right? I can hear those sounds, and I can also balance the dark feeling of it. Feels to me also, I mean, I thought also about drowning, which is a very, very horrible thing for, I don't know, most people, but definitely me to imagine. I don't think I would like to die that way. I would like to die almost any other way, actually.
It's not about drowning, but it takes place in water.
But I push back against that idea that it's not about drowning, because if a reader can show, here are words of drowning, then the writer's intention only means that the writer's intention's there, but then also this other thing is there, and perhaps it came from
Yeah, you're right.
conscious,
And I guess a part of it is about drowning. So, yeah.
or it's the reader's unconscious, subconscious reading into it too. But as long as we can prove our readings with the actual language, and for me, it was heavy pressure of depth, my lungs become breathless.
That's
In
the feeling of
sun-
water pressure for sure. But
Yeah.
also a heavy body on top of yours, of course. You
Right,
know?
right. It could definitely, I'm not saying there's one reading at all, almost ever, right? And especially in a poem as complicated as this one, I'm saying that I'd like to keep multiple possibilities in my mind as I'm reading.
Also, Richard, is it a sonnet?
A sonnet,
Yeah.
if it's 14 lines, that's the gold standard of like 14 lines in poetry definitely translates into sonnet, but there are all these other things that go into it too, such as, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. Like if you're trying to write a traditional sonnet, sonnets aren't separated. Like all of them. If you read Shakespeare's sonnets, they're not separated, the stanzas,
Okay.
all self-contained in one, like boom. And so it doesn't strike me as a sonnet in first reading and in hearing. I didn't think about that, even though you and I have already talked about it. I didn't consider it, but that doesn't mean anything. It just means that I'm caught up in the language first and the form later.
Yeah. I was so caught up on trying to make it a sonnet. I don't think it is. It
I
was
have to say,
Read more about sonnets.
okay, so I want to say the stanza about the stomach acid and the digesting. I'm very, very intrigued by that kind of like scientific stuff, but I was thinking that that's the one stanza that stands out as it might to me confuse the imagery that I'm getting from the other stanzas. Does
Yeah,
anybody else think that?
I do too.
Yeah.
Stomach
Yeah,
acid.
But I like it, but maybe it's a different poem or something.
yeah. because I had so many drafts and I pulled it from this other draft where I described this being's body and what it looked like, and then just pulling that line from and excluding the descriptions of its body makes it totally confusing, and I agree with that. But I'd love some advice on how I can make this better, and like that was really appreciated because
I think, okay, so number one is we're gonna have to move on, unfortunately, because we're not gonna be able to spend any time with Robert Browning, and I definitely want to do that. And number two is that question, in my view, I mean, we can make, and we always do, make comments, general comments, but the page, the poem is the best indicator, especially if you get it to this level. Like at this level, I'm loath to say, oh, take out line 4 or what. It seems very carefully made. And so I trust the process. And my feeling is to go back in and to just see what you can do. One thing you could think about, and this is a very small point, and I don't want to make it too big of a deal, apostrophes seem to not be your best friend. So man's needs an apostrophe and its doesn't need one. So its is, I hear my heart burning in it is stomach acid.
oh my god.
So just to think about, and I've seen that before in your poems, to think about apostrophes,
Yeah.
and that's a simple thing you could easily,
No, that's grammar.
yeah, grammar.
But why? In its
Don't
stomach
really
acid,
get it.
aren't you talking about the heart stuff? I'm confused. And
It-
what are you
it's
trying to say there? Burning in, what were you trying to say?
burning in its stomach acid, the stomach acid of it, right?
Yeah, the being.
So, so check out apostrophes because its is the exception. It's possessive of its is the one without an apostrophe.
Yeah, I know. I didn't catch that. Thank
So,
you.
let's please go on and look at Jen's poem for a few minutes and then go on to Robert Browning, okay? So let's look at this. Let's just read it once. I'll read it. And then we can offer Jen some comments in this video as well. Mom's visits. The only dreams I remember now are those she's in. Though they are not about her, it's her that I remember. I feel her more now than when she lived. Always too bold, always too colossal, always doing and acting as she pleased, silencing, editing myself, bowing to the immensity of her, consuming my sleep, holding hostage my waking hours, wishing to see her again.
Ooh, the first thing that I think is how the writer is a little, I would almost guess ambivalent about the mother simply because right, there's like, I remember her, it's what I remember, so I'm thinking of fondness, but then always to this, silencing, editing myself for her, but then finishing with wishing to see her and holding hostage, but wishing to see her again, right? Do you guys feel that ambivalence?
Anybody want to answer a question? That seems to be what the whole poem is built around, right?
Right.
So I think you nail the whole thing. Colossal is a great word in this poem. And I love the editing myself, the crossed out editing.
Which has a it gives me a real feeling of that emotion, like seeing that, the visual of that, where like it expresses to me that feeling where you're editing you're careful, You have to delete yourself for somebody else.
Yeah, that was a great addition to the poem.
Hmm.
Don't many people have this love-hate relationship with their parents?
Yeah, especially a mother and a daughter.
Hmm. And I love that she said it. I love that she didn't fall prey to like, at first I did think it was going to be like, because there's these dreams of the dead that you remember. And I remember Jen talking about her mother and how wonderful she was. But then she took it further and she wasn't afraid to kind of admit to that.
Yeah, so is our allegiance with our poetry or with our art, or is it with the people in our lives? Like, that's a really hard question. Why, Valentina, between mothers and daughters more so than others? Ambivalence
Like in general?
or love-hate. Yeah, like you said that.
Yeah, there's
why-
just this like, I think mothers really project themselves onto their daughters, and they like, if we're using like traditional, I don't know, only two genders, like a mother and a son, like they kind of idealize that person because they don't really see themselves as much in their sons, but when they have daughters they like criticize them like they would criticize themselves, and it's really hard because you always want to like be the best version of yourself for your mom, but she sees like flaws of herself in you. And yeah, if that makes any sense.
So it happens more with mothers and daughters than say the projection, than say fathers and sons.
I don't know. I don't know. I
'Cause
just know that
I hear this sometimes. Women
yeah,
talk about their mothers in a different way than men talk about their fathers.
yeah.
It's interesting to me. It's more
I've definitely
reflective. Like there's
talked
less distance. Sorry, what?
I've definitely heard like all my friends talk about that relationship with their mothers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there's some
hate my mother.
identification. You hate your mother? Yeah. They're easy to hate sometimes, is the truth.
And it's evolving over our lifetimes.
For sure.
It's a very strange experience getting old. And with your
Yes, to all you young people.
yeah,
You will see the relationship will change in ways that you will not expect.
both of my parents are still alive. So last comment. I wanted a title that was of the magnitude as the word colossal. I wasn't sure, like I thought, should colossal be the title? And then I thought maybe not, but Jen will have to decide. But something like Mom's Visits sounds
Like it's like too direct. So maybe like, yeah, something that evokes the feeling rather than the actuality of it.
I stand behind what you just said. That's a great way to put it. Excellent. Let's look at Robert Browning for the last few minutes, everybody. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the Renaissance, and I wanted to talk a little bit about binary thinking, and I wanted to talk about all these things, but dramatic monologue, let's just say, and then we're going to go and do some close reading of this poem. What is binary thinking and why do we want to avoid it? How does dramatic monologue come into play? Are we familiar with the term binary thinking?
Like black and white thinking, right?
Yes, black and white thinking. And Ollie, can you say anything else about that?
I mean, it's kind of like applying to any situation. It's either this or that. It's either good or bad. There's no in between.
Which therefore goes exactly with what you're saying about the reprehensible character, which is like it's so easy to like toss them aside as pure evil, but no, they're human.
Right. And binary thinking in a dramatic monologue context let me say that differently. The destruction of binary thinking in a dramatic monologue context allows us not only to see, oh, this reprehensible character, which I would never have any contact with in my life,
Identify.
like what you said, is human, and yes, identify, but also I see myself differently because, oh, I'm a nice person. I would never harm anybody. Oh, wait a minute. Remember that time, that I tripped Kyle Bailey in the locker room, like
Hope you
that,
said sorry.
I don't remember, but he could have gotten hurt, you know? Or the time I threw gum into some kid's hair and his mom had to cut his hair out. I mean, cut the gum out of his hair, and those are silly examples compared to what we're reading about. I mean, I certainly haven't done anything as reprehensible as anything that's in this poem or any of the other poems that we're talking about, but it makes me see myself as sort of on a continuum instead of either this or that. It's not either night or day. It's a little bit of both, almost always, not all the time, but almost always. It's not like good or bad is the one that Ollie just said. That's, it's either silent or there's speech. There's either speech or silence. And Jacques Derrida is a French theorist who developed a lot of ideas having to do with breaking down binaries, which led us to deconstruction, which is this mode of reading in such a way that we're breaking down speech and we're breaking down silence in a constant way. And we can't really go into it in too much detail, but keep his name somewhere in your mind, because someday he might become interesting to you and you can check out what he has to say. On Grammatology is the book that he's most famous for, although he wrote many. And so in My Last Duchess, when I'm looking at this poem and I'm trying to do close reading, I'm not looking at I'm not trying to get the large landscape. I'm trying to pay attention to subtext. Like, where do I learn things that he's saying, I'm not a very verbal person, but he's entirely verbal and he controls the whole conversation. And he says little things that he doesn't mean to. And that could easily go over my head if I'm not paying attention to close reading. So in the 1950s, in the US, we had what was called New Criticism. And New Criticism believed in, or the adherents of it, believed in nothing exists outside the poem. No history, no feminism, no queer rights, no post-colonialism, nothing. It's just the poem by itself, and I read it, and I get the meaning from the poem and nothing else. Okay, we can all see the drawbacks, but we might also see that if I then include all of those other things that I just listed and do close reading, the whole world opens up to me in poetry. It doesn't, I don't read only close reading. I read all kinds of different ways, but I'm always exercising this idea of close reading. And so I want to emphasize and underscore the importance of this technique because it gives me a way to find out what I think about what this poem's talking about. So let's do a little bit of close reading here. My Last Duchess. I have a footnote here, which is very helpful. So the poem is based on incidents in the life of Alfonso II, Duke of Ferrara. So underneath the title, we have Ferrara. He's the Duke of this vast, aristocratic, endless land. Duke of Ferrara in Italy, whose first wife, Lucrezia, a young girl, died in 1561 after 3 years of marriage. Following her death, the Duke negotiated through an agent to marry a niece of the Count of Tyrol. Browning represents the Duke as addressing the agent. So in a dramatic monologue, there is often an interlocutor who says nothing. And then there's the speaker. That's where we are in this poem. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, he says first, right? This is the Duke of Ferrara, who is trying to negotiate with this interlocutor for an arranged marriage, basically. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. Already we know so much. We know she's not alive, and there's something sinister. Just
Well, I love how he says my last Duchess. It's mine,
Yeah.
right? It's not there's the last Duchess, it's my last Duchess. It's the last one I had.
It's
that.
like a stake,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Property.
A claim. So he's an egotistical, monomaniacal, well, that's not the word, monomaniacal type of character. And we can also see that we're in iambic pentameter. So 10 syllables, it's very intricately wrought. And so those of you who are writing in form, whether it's the sonnet tonight or whether it's the rhyming that Nitya was using, there's form, and to figure out form, looking as if I were alive. I call that piece a wonder, that piece. So we have other meanings with the word peace now, right? Lots of them, which he doesn't mean any of those, but it is objectifying in an extreme sense of this woman. She is, after all, what they're looking at. That girl that's referred to in the note, the girl that died, right? And by girl, I'm assuming she's, I don't know, pretty young, between 14 and 16 or maybe 17.
Horrible.
Yeah, horrible. And can we see, though, as we read, my judgment against him, it's odd. I don't know quite how to say it. I'm not charmed, but there's some charmingness to the way this guy talks that
Well,
makes
he's slick. Yeah.
super slick. Good word. Good word. So that piece of wonder now, Fra Pandolf's hands. So he's the painter. He's a created painter. Robert Browning made him up. Fra Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. So his hands worked busily, painting this woman, and that the hands busily working have other connotations that this speaker, this Duke, is bringing to mind if we're reading slowly and carefully, and that we can see may have led him to do the reprehensible act. And there she stands. Will it please you sit and look at her? I said Fra Pandolf by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, face. Countenance is another word for face.
Never read strangers like you. Strangers like you haven't seen that a face
See,
like that.
A face like this stranger in this painting that I'm showing you right now, the depth and passion of its earnest glance. Uh-oh, she's got
But why did he say I said Fra Pandolf by design? He's isolating, he's pointing to this artist. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yes. So he's designing, he's putting his whole world into order, including his wife. The depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you but I, and seemed as they would ask me, if they durst or if they dared, how such a glance came there, how such a glance came into her eye. So Not the first are you to turn and ask thus, Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek. Perhaps Frau Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much, or, and so that the clothing that she's wearing is too low on her wrist. So let me, Frau Pandolf, the painter, pull this back a little bit and show him a little bit more of your wrist, my lady, right? And the husband is imagining all of this. Or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat, right? Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy in her cheek, right? She's getting excited in his imagination, and he can't bear it. He's getting incredibly jealous. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Sir, 'twas all one, my favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush, at least. She thanked men, good, but thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift. Who'd stoop to, she doesn't respect him enough for all that he owns and all that he has, his aristocratic life, right? That he is giving her, and she, to his mind, owes him everything, including total monogamy. That's not really what I want, but you know what I mean. Total adoration and love forever, and never looking another man in the eye. And remember, this is happening a long, long time ago, right? So 16th century. Who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? He's getting angry now. Even you had skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such an one and say, just this or that, and you disgust me. Here you miss, or here exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessened so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, or indeed, nor plainly set her wits to yours indeed, and made excuse, even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew. I gave commands. Yeah, what do you love about it?
Yeah, then all smiles stop together. There you go.
Right.
There she stands as if alive. And there's the murder.
And there's the murder. As if alive. Will it please you to rise? This word rise, of course, has other connotations, some of them sexual, right? And that subtext, he keeps saying the wrong words, or he keeps saying the exact right words that he means not to say, that are coming from his unconscious mind.
Will't please you rise? You taking that sexually?
You could see that as, here, will it please you, sir, to rise? But also, Frau Pandolf rose, according to him, right?
Wow.
Sexually.
Mhm.
And so did every other man, in all of Italy,
True.
right? So he's not meaning to say that, but as I'm paying attention to the words like dies along her throat and such, the Count, will it please you rise, will meet the company below to do the negotiation of the marriage. Then, I repeat, the Count, your master's known munificence, is ample warrant and ample is sort of another sensual word. Ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed, though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. My object. So the next wife is going to be an object too on the wall. You know? Nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming. So this is another work of art as they're passing by, going upstairs or where downstairs. Neptune's a work of art, though taming a horse. Unlike him, he couldn't tame his wife in his mind. Though a rarity, so she was really beautiful, which Klaus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me, another artist. And who knows, was there another wife? Okay, so a lot of close reading, right? And hearing the words and hearing the sounds and putting my I don't know, bias, that's not really the right word, my perceived ideas about him to the side as he's talking to me, like I'm being sort of seduced by this guy too, and disgusted. It's a really weird and fantastic place to be, showing me the complexities. Like, if I can feel all that, I can't say it's all evil or all good, you know? Breaking down the binary again. I'm a little over, sorry to keep you. We got a lot done. I'm really happy to see you all. And let's catch up next week when we have, who is it next week? Who's giving a presentation? Let's look. Janae, you are. Okay. All right. See you all then.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Richard, what do you keep referring to that you're in isolation, that you've been in this, like you've referred to it a few times? What you're working on now?
Oh yeah, I wrote for 12 years a book, and but like 40 hours a week or more. The
For
whole
12 years,
Yeah, it was really insane. It almost made me crazy.
I would say. Then what?
And then it ended. Thank
Wait,
God.
but now you're out of it? Like it just finished?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
And you what? You handed it in? You sent off the manuscript?
I gave it to my agent who's giving it to a publisher who read it once and said it's not done, finish it and send it back.
So,
I don't-
oh my God, is there another 12 years? No, say it's not so.
it's so crazy. Don't
What's
do
it about? Like, what's it about?
female musicians, female singers.
Female singers. I bought your poetry book. Which one? The World Underneath, is that what it's called? Is something?
Yeah. Yeah.
I open it up. I go, I'm gonna love this, and I'm not gonna read it until after this class because I don't want to be unduly influenced. But I'm excited.
Okay, good.
And when this class is all over, I need to talk to you about what I should do next. If you would
Oh,
be
I'm
so-
still recording this. Here.
Oh,
How do I stop recording this?
I don't know.
End meeting to all or leave meeting. I click the, oh, here.